Welcome to the Sideload, where it's never too soon to start looking back at the smartphones of 2025. I'm your host, Will Sattelberg. Today, I'm joined by Steve Radochia to do just that. You've probably read Steve's writing at Android Police, where he also co-hosts the Android Police podcast. He also runs his own YouTube channel, Stevealicious'Tech, where he's primarily focused on everything mobile, and that's what we're here to discuss today. So welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
Great to be
because
here.
We had such a close working relationship in Android Police, and have obviously kept in touch since I've moved here to 9 to 5 Google. But
yes.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show, and you've also served as, in my opinion, an excellent, if anything, improved replacement for me on the Android Police podcast.
It's different. It's not improved, but but thank you for having me. Number one, yes, it has been weird the past several months because we always would go back and forth about the various different phones. We agreed on many of them. I'm sure the ones that we'll talk about coming up that were earlier in the year. But it's weird. I miss it. I miss getting to talk with you. I miss getting to do that stuff. For continuity purposes, my backlight just ran out of power, even though it was at 60%. So already a professional broadcast. So, you're worried about the intro. Don't worry about it. I got lights going off in the background.
I was looking at your shot. I was looking at your shot, and I was like, wasn't that a little more purple a second ago?
Yes, it goes red right before it dies. It's to warn me somehow that it's cooked. But it had 60% battery.
It's my fault. I got you talking about your Miami Dolphins, and you thought it was only 5 minutes of football talk. It was actually an hour and a half.
Yeah, I saw. I meant to send you this. I think I did send you this. It was a meme of a kid. It's like, my grandfather had 17 or 16 and 0, 14 or whatever it was, 16 and 0. I had Dan Marino as a kid, and my son's pointing this is what I got. Just nothing, just absolutely nothing going on with that franchise. But
listener, I promise. No football talk this week. We did it last week. I'm sorry if you missed it. Right. I know. I'm sorry.
I don't want to talk about it either. Trust me.
Yeah, a lot easier to have Chris Waddell talk about his Kansas City Chiefs than your
come on.
Dolphins. Yeah, just saying. It's easier for him to be happy. That's all.
Yeah.
No, Steve, we are here to talk about smartphones. I was planning on having you on later this year, maybe a month from now. This would have been a good Thanksgiving episode. The thing is, I feel like we're already entering the 2026 era of smartphones in a way where I was like, I think I have to put a bow on the 2025 collection now. This morning as we're recording, and by the way, I've had to move this record 3 times, so thank you for being patient with me, but we're recording this the day it's going to come out, which means this was also the day that OnePlus put up the OnePlus 15 for sale in China. We are in the next generation of phones already, despite the fact that it's October 27th. So I don't know. I think it's time to look back, both big picture and maybe a little more specific on 2025 smartphones, and I couldn't think of a better person than you to do that.
Absolutely, looking forward to it because it's been a bit since we've talked about and complained about our favorite devices. So
and you will have thoughts.
Okay. I was told I was going to be surprised.
Well, I just know you. I know you are going to have things to say. If the listener out there has not, the viewer out there has not met you yet, Steve, they're going to get a healthy dose of your opinions.
That's fair. In the best I'm not way. Bashful. I'm usually not bashful about it. So
no. I've broken this down into 3 basic conversations, trends. And then I'm going to have a bonus round. So I have 3 trends for you to tackle.
I'm ready.
And we'll do a bonus round. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay.
The first trend has to be done. Ultra thin smartphones. Okay. This was the year of the ultra thin smartphone. I'm here to ask you, is 2026 going to be the year of the ultra thin smartphone, or is this done?
I don't think it's done. I wasn't as negative on the phones themselves because I do believe they were meant to set up other devices, whatever those other devices happen to be. I was somebody who I was okay with the S25. We talked about this at the time. I was okay with the S25 Plus going away and the S25 Edge kind of occupying that middle child spot in Samsung's lineup, because Samsung has to do something with that lineup. It's awkward. It's goofy. They don't pull up the 1080p on the Plus model anymore for $1,000, which at least we get something there. But I was hoping that the Edge was a way to differentiate the Ultra from the middle one, and it was perfect. It was set up perfectly because you could have the Edge be like the old S model. If you want the fancy one, if you want the sleek one, if you don't care about the S Pen or top of the line spec, you get the you get the S9 or the S8 or whatever it was when they had that differentiation between the two. And then the Ultra would be the S Pen one with the extra camera, and you could go off from there. And it was the perfect balance. And then you could justify that $300 gap between the two devices. But now they're going to cancel it. It's not, they're going to leave the S26 Plus now alone. I don't understand what's going on with their lineup. Yeah. I don't think they understand what's going on with their lineup, to be perfectly honest.
It's a bizarre, like my knee-jerk reaction to S26 Edge might be canceled. It might just be an S26 Plus actually. And also, by the way, that Pro suffix on the S26 regular was nothing. And so like the lineup is perfectly unchanged, basically. Was like, my knee-jerk reaction was like, it's like, there's no way they can like, they've been working on the S26 Edge. We are months from launch. Like, there's no way they can just like cancel this and like kick off a Plus model that they had done some preliminary work on, right. and then presumably stopped. And then suddenly it's like 2 days later, it's like, oh, by the way, the S26 series might be delayed like a month or so. And then also like maybe the Plus existed the whole time. Oops. Right. And it's like, oh, okay. So like this seems to be real, which I just like, it's so confusing to me because I do think there is a market for both the S25 Edge and the iPhone Air. And yet like we've seen like both phones kind of, the S25 Edge absolutely disappoint sales wise. And then the iPhone Air preliminary early reports are that phone is underselling what was expected. That's not new for Apple. Similar to Samsung, Apple has always struggled with this. In Apple's case, it's a fourth iPhone slot, but still they've struggled with this, right? We've watched that slot go from the Mini to the Plus to the Air now. And I don't know, like I'm kind of wondering if this is like an advertisement issue as much as it is a demand issue, because you can say there's no demand for these phones, but Steve, we just talked about football. You and I watch a lot of football. I haven't seen an iPhone Air ad. I've seen a lot of Pro ads. Haven't seen an iPhone Air ad. I haven't seen an S25 Edge ad. Like, I do wonder if it is a little bit of these companies just kind of being like, well, we'll put it out there, and if people buy it, people buy it. It's like, I don't know if a lot of people even know the iPhone Air exists. Like, I truly, which is a crazy thing to say. Yeah,
and I think it's proof of. I think it's fine. I mean, it occupied a weird spot in the lineup. There was no way for with that larger battery and everything else for $200 less. The S25 Plus was a significantly better value than the Edge. It was only if you wanted to be in the. I think it's just to. They have the product, they built the product, it's to make their other products maybe thinner down the line, figure out how to do certain things in a product that they really don't care about. So if the S25 Edge goes under and doesn't do well, same thing with the iPhone Air, well, it was a kind of a one-off, it was its own thing, it's not part of the main product line that we have, but they could take the things that they've learned from those phones and put them into the main bread and butter devices. And I do think that was because it's if that's not the case, then I have serious questions about who runs it, which might have anyway. But then it makes no sense whatsoever. Unless it was a stepping stone to get to somewhere else next year or with future devices, then it really makes no sense. Because then, like you said, the advertising made no sense. None of it makes any sense.
No, it's bizarre. And simultaneously, I do think like we are on the precipice of a world that I think is ready for this design, this like ultra thin design. It's just that like the companies doing it, or at least the companies like leaning into it in the US are the two companies that are probably going to be like the least willing to try something like silicon carbon batteries where you'll have a larger, we've seen this with Motorola's like half announced Edge 70, I believe is the name of it, but it's been announced in China, right? And that device, despite being 5 point something millimeters thick, has like a 47, 48, 4900 milliamp, like a fairly average battery size for a standard smartphone, but in an ultra thin chassis compared to something like the 4,000 or 30, not even 4,000, 3,900 milliamp per hour battery in the Edge. And I don't remember the Airs off the top of my head, but it's a similar size. And iPhones are always a little weird about their battery sizes anyway. It's a little bit apples and oranges when you're comparing to Android. But I wonder if like the fact that these companies are a little slow or unwilling to try, Apple is slow or unwilling to try new tech until it is like established and they know they can trust it. Samsung is wary on batteries, wary on charging, always, or has been for a decade.
Yes.
And
why is that?
I just wonder if it's like these are just the wrong companies to bring around like some kind of ultra thin revolution, or maybe the demand really doesn't exist. Like I can really point at like 7 or 8 different things that are going wrong here. I don't know if you fixed all of them, if like suddenly there would be demand.
I think it's got to be an Apple or a Samsung though, unfortunately, just because of the money involved.
The user base.
Yeah.
Well, I agree.
User base and just getting the technology to make these things really thin, because I would test it. Well, we can talk about this guy later. This is the Unihertz Titan 2. But it's 11 millimeters thick, and it's because these smaller companies are using off-the-shelf stuff. They don't have stuff that's matching whatever. So it's got to be, unfortunately, a Samsung or an Apple, and they're not going to take a chance on the S20. I mean, we talked about it this year with the S25 lineup. They were content saying, "Well, it's a great upgrade from your S22." Well, gee, I hope so. So that they're going to take a chance on. So these are perfect vehicles, I think, to test stuff like that, but. Now, obviously, not the case, and they're doing away with it. So it's odd.
It's like you really like half-assed the effort to sell the S25 Edge, and so to not even give like its successor model like a full shake where it has truly entered the mainline Trio. It has replaced one of the mainline Trio entries and is like hopefully targeted at the same $1,000 price point as the Air, as opposed to the $1,100 as the Edge, because you now have that flexibility. You're able to go out and say at launch, we have 3 phones. The middle one is really intriguing. It's thin, and you've had a generation to maybe hopefully solve some of these battery concerns, or even just take the shortcut Apple did and build a Qi 2, a MagSafe specific battery for it, which I brought up on an episode of Pixelated on 9 to 5 Google, that Apple, absolutely showed the ingenious of MagSafe by being able to launch with that battery, something Samsung couldn't answer for because they skipped over Qi 2 on the S25 generation. I think had they had those magnets built in, they could have done the same thing, and at the very least, like had an answer for some of those battery critiques.
Right. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was perfect because because we've talked about this before, and this has always been that concern. Why are you get a downgraded camera system on the Plus? Yes, okay, so you get an extra lens, great, that's fine. If you go up and you get the S Pen, well, what justifies that $300 gap? And this would have been the perfect way to do it, because it's this slim phone, it's completely different. And if you want the Pro one with the better cameras, because it's got the 2 lenses, if you want, then you spend the more money on the Ultra, and you could justify those being for 2 different customers. So it resolved so many problems. I don't know why. And like you said, it was obviously further along in development. It was a very bizarre decision. By Samsung.
I agree. It's a lack of being willing to try something that I think could have worked out in the long run.
Right.
I don't know. It's very odd. I'm not ready to call like the ultra thin phone fad dead, maybe, right? Like I do think there's like a chance some of this comes back, or Apple finds success with the Air, or Samsung gives it another go, or these rumors turn out to be wrong, or somebody else, like, Motorola actually brings that phone to the US, although I don't know if Motorola's had a ton of success in the US outside of the Razr lately. I think those things exist, those opportunities, those routes exist for this to be a serious, like, way to use phones, or like a next to standard smartphones and foldables, there'd be this like third pillar of like ultra premium, ultra thin devices that I think could win some users over. I just don't know if the companies doing it right now are up to the challenge.
And Daniel brought up on the Android Police a fantastic point that I hadn't considered, but it's an opportunity for Apple to do something similar to what they did in the late 90s when they came back from the wilderness of having the iPhone Air be the consumer level iPhone, and then you have this new industrialized kind of MacBook Pro design on your iPhone 17 Pro Max, and differentiate the two there. You have the consumer phone, here it is, the iPhone Air Slim, whatever, can do stuff, and then you have the big chunky one, the iPhone 17 Pro Max for the pro users. I think it's phenomenal across the board. Multiple companies can benefit.
It's interesting. I hadn't thought that they rolled out this like not quite pro, but still more premium than regular iPhone this year, but they did so in the same generation where they made the iPhone 17 like a really enticing buy for $800, right? They like fixed the remaining hardware complaints people had with this being a premium device despite its entry-level status. But now it's like, aren't I paying for more for less? Like if the iPhone Air had launched with the iPhone 16 and it has a higher res, faster display, and more RAM, and you can kind of ignore the discounted camera count. Is that smarter? Is that like the smarter fix for Apple for this phone to have launched a year ago, or for them to have not improved the iPhone 17 so much? Like maybe. I bet that's a problem too. Like it's I don't know. It's like both of these companies went along with this like thing, Apple started chasing it. We saw those rumors. Samsung came out of nowhere to, I think we all agree, undercut Apple to beat them to market. And neither of them have managed it well. It's very odd. It's very odd.
And this is something we used to talk about all the time, actually, that Samsung does with other devices. They cannibalize their own lineup all the time. Google used to have a huge problem with it. They finally fixed it somewhat by separating out the 9A and having the launch. That's a lot better than it used to be. But Samsung's lineup down the line, all the way down to the $200 devices, is a mess. And now you've got a similar. There's just too many products on the Apple side now too. And I think it really reminds me of late '90s Apple or mid '90s Apple, where it was like, why do you have 30 different products? And I can't tell you why you'd buy this one over this one. That's a problem, because if I can't figure out which one it is, then it's hard to communicate that to the customer which one you should be buying.
Well said. Well said. If you had to guess, if you had to bet, let's say, does Samsung make another ultra thin smartphone? Let's say in the next 5 years. Let's limit it to that.
Yeah, I think
you don't think it's done.
I don't think it's only because you look at the Z Fold when it comes out unfolded. Was it 4.2 millimeters? It is phenomenal to hold in the hand. I went back and forth on the foldables, but the Z Fold 7 is a really nice hold in the hand, and those ultra thin ones are really nice. And everybody that I've met that used an Edge, it's like, oh, this is really good. Have you felt this? This is fantastic. And the same thing with the Air. So I think we'll eventually get there, just because weight is a big deal for a lot of people on these phones. But is it going to compromise thermals? Is it going to compromise what people find as an acceptable battery life? Those have to be answered, I think, first. But as far as like silicon carbon batteries and getting a reasonable battery life, they'll go as thin as they can go and get away with it, I think, as long as the battery life can maintain something that people find acceptable for $1,000.
Yeah. Well said. Let's use that perfect segue you've provided me to jump over to my second topic. My second conversation I want to have, which is the state of foldables, because it's been a weird year for foldables, right? Like I think we watched OnePlus like fully skip out on the US market, or like kind of the market in general, and just be like, yeah, sorry that that Oppo foldable looks really nice, we're not doing it.
That was awful. That was an awful tease. Awful. Like, oh, this is really good. Oh, forget it.
We've watched Google essentially just relaunch the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, right? Like the Pixel, I hesitate to even, it's not a bad phone, but I hesitate to even call it the Pixel 9.5 Pro Fold. It's like the Pixel 9.3 Pro Fold.
Yes.
Fine phone, but not exactly a leap forward, especially for such a young product category. But then we have, the Fold 7, which has taken the market by storm, and I think is like single-handedly keeping interest in foldables in the US alive at the moment, which I didn't expect, especially after, I would say the last time we saw like a truly exciting foldable from Samsung was like the Fold 3. I would be curious to see if you agree with me on that, but that was when it started to feel like a phone you would actually use in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, the 4,
Well, got a little wider on the
smoothed
4,
out
which I
some
liked a
edges.
lot. So you could,
Well, it's every step of the way. It was like, we're smoothing out some edges. And it's like, okay, but like, there's more, like, you can smooth out more than one edge at a time. And they're like, no. This year, it's like the screen. Next year, did the 5? The 5 didn't have a gap. Next year, it's the gap. Next year, we make it a little thinner, a little more usable with the outer screen. And then finally, the Fold 7 will be like, okay, here's the modern foldable. It only took us 5 generations. Yeah. It's a really good phone. Let's start. Who do you want to start with? Samsung, Google, OnePlus?
I'll start with Samsung because I think I was the proudest of Samsung, because the same gentleman who gave the pre-brief for the S25 Ultra, who repeatedly said, wow, it's a great upgrade from your S22 Ultra.
Yeah.
Got up at the Z Fold 7 briefing and said, we understand that for $2,000, people aren't happy with incremental upgrades. Well, thanks. I wish that Samsung took that energy to its entire lineup. I know that's unrealistic, but I'm glad that we finally got it with the Z Fold 7. It's fantastic to hold, super thin, nice. I love the wider outer display. I can get by. This is the first time on a Fold. There's other ones I've gotten away with. The 6.3, 6.4 inch ones are fine. That 6.5 inch display that's wider is the first time on a Z Fold anyway, I could use that for an entire day and not feel I'm being shortchanged. Not feel like I'm somehow whatever. So if you're out, if you're running around, if you don't feel like unfolding it for whatever reason, you don't have to. And I could get a full smartphone experience on that device, on the cover display, and not have a problem, which I think is a big win for Samsung when I'm using it. And it feels like a just regular phone. If you stack that, you carry it with your S25 Ultra, it feels the same, 215 grams or whatever it is. I think it's actually roughly the same weight, or maybe even a little lighter. It's 9 millimeter. The S25 Ultra, I think, is 8.9 millimeters. That's roughly the same as the folded. Phenomenal. That's what you wanted to get to, where I can feel like it's a regular smartphone. It's a lower barrier to entry for people that don't want to carry around these monsters in their pocket. It's like you're carrying around a regular phone. Now it just comes down to price. Do you want to spend the money or not? And I really like the Z Fold 7.
The price barrier, I think, is unfortunately the last remaining pillar that is keeping foldables from becoming mainstream. Right. And I don't know how that changes. I think we've seen a couple of budget foldables from companies not in the US. Techno is the main one, right? But there has not been an appetite from Samsung to make anything cheaper on the book style foldable side. And to be honest with you, they made a cheaper clamshell phone with everybody was like, wow, that thing. Why would you buy that? Why would you buy that? Go buy last gen, or spend the slightly extra money to buy a Fold 7 or Flip 7. Made no sense. So the
$200 gap wasn't enough.
$200 gap was not enough. It was the FE. I mean, the FE series in general, but it's why does this exist? I don't know.
Especially when you see a fantastic example from Motorola of how to do a mid-range foldable device, clamshell. Yeah. But there was no reason to touch
on Motorola, and because I'm mostly thinking of book style foldables. But the Razor's good. The Razor's good. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's just good. It's
just good. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't change anything. Motorola, keep doing what you're doing.
What's crazy? I guess the only crazy thing about the Razor is that it's, I would say that the one to get is the cheap one, which is not always true, but I would point people towards the regular Razor this year. Yeah. But otherwise, the Razor, great. Keep doing, make it thinner, I think is the thing I'm looking for next, to make it slimmer. But, and I'm hoping they can use some of that battery tech they have from the Edge 70, but we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. The Fold 7, it's really good. My biggest complaint about it is that I've soured on One UI again. after kind of enjoying the novelty of One UI 7, I tried to make the Fold 7 my daily driver, and I was after using Material 3 Expressive, it's I don't want to be on One UI.
And you nailed it. That's it, because people dig in and they're like, what are you talking about? Why do you prefer the one software, whatever? It's not that One UI 8 is bad. It's not bad.
It's just
it's fine. It's just not Material 3 Expressive. It's just not interesting on the Pixel.
It's why would I can go use better something. That's the thing. It's available to me right now on a different device, but I would like to go use that. And so
But One UI 8's fantastic, smooth.
It's great.
It works well, responsive, fantastic.
No issues on a technical level, for sure. It's just, it's really striking to me how like you will open a Google app and you'll see the Material 3 expressive elements, and then you go back home and you see this like sort of dated looking like mishmash of like Google Android elements, Samsung Android elements, and then like some Apple splash like inspired UI experiences just scattered in there just to like keep you on your toes. And it feels so disconnected from the device. Right. I don't know. I find it frustrating. I know there's a lot of people out there who love Samsung software. I wish I liked it more. I just think like they need to strike like a specific visual tone. And I think they'd be smart to just kind of follow Google's lead here. But Samsung wants its own design language. We saw that literally last week with the Galaxy XR, like is skinned to the bone with One UI elements. Like that, might feel like a dev unit from Google for Android XR, but it is not. That is like a Samsung product, just as we saw with like the Galaxy Watch previously. So yeah. I don't know. It's interesting.
And they're in a weird spot. I mean, I'm one of the few people probably that thinks that Samsung, along with the software stuff, should go to its own Exynos 2600 chipset and use that across the board, because I think Samsung should start start using some of these massive advantages it has as a company to leverage and differentiate its products a little bit better, like with software, like Google's done with Material 3 Expressive. We're talking about Google and wanting to go back to a Pixel, and then people will start talking to me about benchmarks. I was like, hold on, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's the user experience. These are things that matter. So I wish that Samsung would really focus on that to differentiate its products, like Apple does, like Google does, and now they have an opportunity to do it. So it doesn't feel like this hodgepodge of just stuff all over the place that is kind of slammed together in this device.
Doesn't ruin the phone though. To be clear. Like it doesn't at all. No. It doesn't. It's the thing that like I don't think most people will think about. I think this is for sickos like us.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Who are paid to overthink this. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on the Pixel 10?
Yes.
Okay.
I like it only because it's the first time on a foldable that I left that thing unplugged overnight. I just threw it on the bed next to me, went to sleep. Got up the next day, it had 65%. I made it through the next day too. And that's with not being shy on the internal display. Because if I buy a fold, I'm spending that kind of money. I want to use that internal display. I want to multitask. I like the fact that it's slightly, I hate that they went away from their original form factor, which was completely landscape dominant. But this one is a little bit more landscape than the Z Fold 7 series. I like the fact that it gives my apps, if I'm multitasking, a little bit more room on either side. You have Material 3 Expressive. It's just, I do think there are advantages to the thing. Now, 258 grams. The thing is absolutely a beast in your pocket. So if
it was too heavy last year.
I know.
It's too heavy now.
They got to bring that, they got to rein that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But otherwise I do like it. It's just, you got to be willing to, it's a typical Google quirky phone. So it's going to have the heft. It's going to have the weight, it's going to have that design. It's not the white, but I do like it. I like the battery life. I like getting to use the internal display on a foldable. To buy that, I buy it to get to use that 8.1 inch display. I get to use it on the Pixel 10 Pro Fold all day long and not worry about it.
Despite the fact that you like both of these phones, are you and we can come full circle on this. Have you also spent all year being sad that there is no OnePlus Open 2?
Yes.
I have.
I'm thankful that some of these companies finally, like the 9010 is not quite open canvas, but it gets us a little closer.
It's better. It's better than it was,
right? It's better than it was. So, but we're still not there. But open canvas is really what I'm missing on a foldable, because you have that gorgeous display and you're swapping stuff around and you're hitting stuff and giving stuff apps proper aspect ratios. I love that entirely. So it's very sad that it never came here. Very, very bad sad. I think it could have really kickstarted a lot of competition. You'd have more people using these. I don't know. Again, like you said, the price. The problem with OnePlus is always going to be the carrier store stuff. I'm sorry. I don't care what anybody says. You left the T-Mobile stores because that's the way that you beat. We talked about price on these foldables. That's the way you beat it. People are going to pick up a Z Fold 7 because they can walk into AT&T with their busted S8 and get $1,000 off or whatever and pay $30 a month.
Yeah. Name recognition, brand recognition, just general availability. I just, yeah, I agree that Best Buy's not enough. And it's like,
No.
okay, you don't have anybody. Like I couldn't even tell you, like I walk into my Best Buy and it's like big Samsung sign, a big, Apple sign, and big, like some, maybe like a Verizon.
Motorola has a better presence in there than
sure. And then it's like, sure, I guess if I wander enough, I'll spot the OnePlus phone. Am I going to find it on my own? Is a guide going to bring me to it? Like on both counts, probably no. And the amount of like brands that you do recognize, I mean, even Google will be like thrown at you way before you get to a OnePlus device. So it's better than nothing. Like they need retail availability in general, but it's not enough. And
no.
Yeah, God, I really wish we had gotten an Open 2 before the Hasselblad partnership dissolved. Because I'm genuinely nervous about what the OnePlus 15's camera performance will end up looking like. But again, as we said, that phone is not far off, it seems.
No.
China launch was today. So we'll know sooner than later. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but I'm keeping my expectations unfortunately low. Anything to say about the Razer or the Flip 7? I skipped over
the Flip 7,
it didn't feel like an even the Flip 7, which is thinner. I'm like, okay, but it's not really thin enough for me to notice.
That was the thing. I was disappointed at the Z Flip 7 because I was initially excited. When I first got the hands on and looking at it, I'm like, oh, this is a fantastic outer display. I'm not part of the bezel police. I don't care. You could have electrical tape on the side of the thing. But it was a very nice thin bezel. It looked really nice. It was great. I was like, I like the kind of squared off design. I love the core color. They actually gave it some colors. It was a beautiful color. And it sits on my desk. And it's because the cover screen experience remained exactly the same. I thought that One UI 8 was a phenomenal opportunity to integrate a lot of the good lock stuff. Now they've gotten better. They say, well, you got to download. If you go to the bottom of the flip, the cover screen settings, it says, well, you have to download good lock and then you download multi-star. But there's people who are not going to do that. And the way that you're editing the outside panels or tiles on the Z Flip 7s, you have to keep opening the device. You're doing it. You're opening the device. You're closing the device to get different stuff on there. You pick yourself up a Razer Ultra. You're using Instagram. You're using whatever you want on that outer display in seconds. And I don't understand why they weren't able to duplicate that experience.
It's difficult to like really get excited about a clamshell, I feel. And like we talked about the Flip FE, and that was, if they had launched that at like $600 or $700, I think we maybe could have celebrated a little bit more about it. But it was $900, right? I'm not making that up.
No, it was $900. Samsung spent 3 seconds on it during the presentation. They just like, oh yeah, $900, whatever it's for. And it was using I
understand how you launch that phone for $900 when you have like it's like the same design as like the previous 2 generations, and you could just sell those. Like, who's buying it? I know it exists to eventually do carrier deals, but I don't know. Like, you could do that on older hardware now. It made zero sense to me, which is weird because Motorola's had decent luck doing 2 models. I would say they have not figured out how to do 3. The Razer Ultra should just be the Plus. The Plus should just not exist, and the cheaper Razer is great and has been great for at least 2 generations now. I liked the 2024 and the 2025 one. So, but it's just one of those things where I don't know what you're doing with this phone, Samsung. It's very similar to the Edge, where I'm like, on paper, a fine idea. In practice, you bungled like 17 things on this launch sheet I have. Like, I don't get it.
No, and that was the frustrating part, because I was looking forward to a legitimate competition in the mid-range foldables, because they bring the price down.
Absolutely.
Let's start getting some competition down here. And then they go ahead and say, well, $900. I'm like, well, that's not a mid-range.
Yeah, it feels very similar to like we just watched the Galaxy Watch FE like go into a fire sale, and like nobody bought that thing, and that was like an okay value. It wasn't great, but it was, you could see the like who that was for on paper, and like nobody bought it. And so after a year, they have started to like essentially discontinued it and did a bunch of deep discounts on it, and like I can just feel that happening with the Flip FE in like 9 months. But I and I don't think, I wouldn't be surprised to see them just never make another one of these. But I just don't.
As far as clamshell, if you want a clamshell, which I think is the accessible foldable, I still say, I maintain this to this day, when I am done reviewing something or I'm not reviewing something specific, my SIM goes in the Razr Ultra, and that is what I carry around.
I just wish it was thinner. It's just such a bulky phone in your pocket. It's like 15 millimeters. It's crazy thick.
Yes.
And it's just like not a great like pocket experience. It's very odd. It would be fine in a purse or a backpack, but like, yeah, it's tricky. I really hope whatever the next gen, we haven't seen any leaks, but whatever the next gen Moto Razr is, I hope they keep the colors. Which I would expect them to do. I hope they minimize the AI stuff because it has not been successful, and I hope that they make it thinner. Like I'm talking like 12 or 11 millimeters closed. I like
it. Why not?
I think that's totally achievable. I don't think I'm asking
carbon,
for anything
if they
crazy.
Use the Edge 70 stuff, like you said, the technology, if they port some of that over.
Yeah, we're seeing everybody but like the big like North American OEMs do it, like Samsung and Apple and Google. So I'm hoping like that. We'll see what it has when it hits the US, but that OnePlus 15's like 7,300 milliamp per hour battery. Like, good Lord, I couldn't kill the OnePlus 13.
No,
and I'm going to kill the OnePlus 50.
Right? 6,000?
6,000. This is so much more. And like, even if it's only 6,500 in the US or whatever, like, good God, like it's just a huge battery. So, that's foldables. That's foldables then. The last thing, and I know you have a lot of thoughts on it because we've talked a lot about it. I want to talk about Tensor. I want to talk about Pixel.
Yes.
I want to ask you the simple question. We can bounce it around, but is the noise surrounding Google and Tensor getting too loud? And we've been joined by a special guest for this. Linus is in here.
Absolutely.
I'm going to try to keep him. Video viewers can view Linus. I'm going to try to keep him from rubbing on the mic.
Love it.
No promises, but he's here. He eats lunch at 1. We're recording at 1:23 as we record. He eats lunch, and then he's got an automatic feeder. And then around 1:06, he comes and either lays on my lap for an hour or will cry outside my office door if it's closed, which is what he's been doing for 15 minutes.
Right.
So he's in here now because he would not settle down. But okay, nice. Pixel.
Yes.
That's my question for you. Is the noise surrounding Google getting too loud?
Yeah, I think so. Only because, I wrote something last week. I made the horrible error of writing something last week defending what Google's doing with Tensor. And I have never experienced a backlash like that. Yeah. I've never had people posting my headlines on X before and just going crazy in the comment section. I've had people complaining about me on Reddit before. That's old news, but not to this just sheer volume. Yeah. And the examples I always see, and this is a problem that Google had, and they're not going to be able to escape it. It's always, well, my Pixel 7 was a disaster. My Pixel whatever was it. Yeah, okay, they were. Yeah, granted. Yeah. Good. We've moved on from that. So yes, Google had problems with customer satisfaction years ago. There were quality control issues years ago. There were many different things that turned people off from Pixels because of the 6 and the 7 and the 7A and all those things. Absolutely granted. But like before, we don't hold Qualcomm and Snapdragon to account for a Snapdragon 888 that could power Chernobyl. All right, we don't have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 was a thermal problem and a battery problem until they went to TSMC. And we don't sit here and complain years later like, oh, my S22 was no, you don't do that. These companies evolve.
S22 owners do, and they should.
Yes, they do.
They're allowed. They're allowed.
They do, especially if you had the Exynos 2200. But that brings us back to the point about Tensor. Yes, the chipsets were not good from the start. The hardware, all these problems with Pixel. Yeah. But unless you've used a 9 or a 10,
I agree.
It's incredibly hard to give an accurate account of what's happening with Pixels today. And that's where I exist. That's where you exist today. How are they going? Things are going well. Would I like to see better gaming performance? Yes. They've clearly leaned into the TPU. Now, to be fair to Google, Tensor, the first Tensor on the Pixel 6, Material 3 Expressive runs pretty darn good on my Pixel 6. So if you want to sit there, and that's 4 years later or whatever, so you want to sit there and say, oh, Tensor's not going to make it 7 years of software support. I haven't seen that evidence yet.
No, I agree with you.
I think it's too loud. Yes. Yes, it is too loud, I think.
It's tricky, right? Like, personal anecdote, hanging out Friday night, and I get a text from one of my friends who is like, hey, my phone just died. Like my Pixel 6 is like fully, it won't turn on. It like randomly, the screen flashed and then it started just showing the Google logo a bunch.
Good.
And I like tried to walk him over text, over Facebook Messenger, because he didn't have a phone. I tried to walk him through like, okay, can you get it to like rescue mode or like into the bootloader or even just like, can you get to the fast boot menu, all of this stuff, right? And like he's like, I can, but like it keeps turning off. Welcome back, Linus. It keeps turning off. And I'm like, okay, can your computer detect it? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, come over tomorrow. I have my old spare Pixel 6. It's sitting in a box. I will charge it. I will factory reset it. I will give it to you. I will loan it to you to have a device while you figure out what you want next, right? I'm pretty sure, having worked on this phone, that the motherboard failed. Like I think it's a failing motherboard. I'm like fairly confident. I got halfway through factory, like wiping and factory resetting it. Like I was able to get it, my computer to see it, and it died halfway through. Okay. And I'm fairly certain it is essentially bricked at this point. I have to convince him, or like, well, really Google has to convince him to go to a Pixel 10. And he has straight up told me, he's like, well, I'm like, I know it's 4 years old, but I'm a little worried that this just had like a massive like hardware failure while the phone is technically not EOL. I'm like, yeah, like I don't know what I'm going to, like, what do I tell? Like, I'm the person he's going to ask for, like, what do I buy next? And it's a tough conversation to have. And this is why I get the people who are so just angry online when you try to defend anything and they bring up these old devices, because I hated my Pixel 6 experience. The fingerprint sensor didn't work 50% of the time. Thankfully, I wasn't one of the people that had the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi go out, but Google didn't solve that for 2 months. It was like a January patch that eventually resolved that. There was that survey, I think right before the Pixel 8 came out, that of the major manufacturers, Pixel owners were the most willing to switch. Like they don't want a Pixel anymore because of whatever. It was like 25%. It was some ridiculous number that the Samsung and Apple were like 5-6%, maybe 10%. Google was at 25% for Pixel because of these things. That used to be the norm. You know, there would be people that with all kinds of problems with their Pixel 6s and Pixel 7s. So I get it. And if you had one of those, and that's whatever. But if you're just a Pixel hater, and then you're talking about the Pixel 9 and 10 in context of these older devices, I have no sympathy for you. But if you were somebody who was actually burned by one of these things, I get why you'd be hesitant to come back. It's only the software. It's only the Pixel extras. I mean, if you I'll tell you this. When I'm not reviewing a Pixel and we're in the car and I have another phone, like a Moto or something, my wife is always like, I kind of miss Now Playing. I kind of miss like stuff like that. So if you're somebody like that, it's an easy sell to come back. But I agree with you. You're like, I have nothing to say. You're not wrong. They're just better now. I'm not at Google. I don't work for Google. Right? Yeah, so like, exactly. I'm going to like recommend a Pixel 10 because I like that phone. But if he's like, I really don't want to buy another Google device. I'm like worried about like, sure, you say it's good for 7 years, but like, what if the motherboard dies after 4 years again and I have to buy, like, I'm not the kind of guy who wants to upgrade my phone every year or two. Like, what do I do about that? I'm going to be like, good point. Like, you can buy from a different brand. Like, I don't, this is stuff Google needs to, especially as Pixel finds success, Google needs to be thinking about their, hardware reliability. This is one anecdote. I'm not being like the Pixel 6 has a motherboard problem after 4 years or whatever. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that like, when there is this much noise around the Pixel, if you Google anything about the Pixel, you start to find all these Reddit threads of people having problems because Google support chain is not particularly good. So they tend to, and crossed with Pixel owners largely being more enthusiast types. And you get this experience where I think more than any other phone, like if you search for issues with a Pixel, you are going to find, dozens and dozens and dozens of Reddit threads of people having these problems that I think would scare off either returning customers or even new customers. And I think Google needs to figure out a way to like make it feel like a more accessible, less enthusiast phone, because like I don't want to have to send somebody the Pixel repair URL at 10 p.m. on a Friday. I want to, I want them to just have a working phone.
Right. And I think you hit on two important things. And that's the I think a lot of the problem that we have with Pixel now is the first thing is there's always noise surrounding any sort of launch. There's always going to be somebody that had a problem or their screen did this or something like that. But the Pixel stuff, I think you're fair to bring up that anecdote because the Pixel stuff always went above the regular kind of background noise of nonsense happening with devices. There was enough quality control issues there that those are legitimate complaints about Pixel 6 hardware and older Pixel hardware. And I think that the thing that they have to combat, or not combat, is that you're changing your customer base. Like you said, there were so many people I know that were complaining. It's like, oh, I would buy Nexus because, I wanted that power at a lower price and the stock Android and this stuff like that. They don't care about you anymore. They've lost that customer. But there's people hanging on that don't quite recognize that. So when they see the Tensor G5 not benchmark as well as the Snapdragon 8 Elite, they lose it. But it's not 100%. Google's focus anymore. And that's what 100%. Google has to do is move away from kind of say like, you know what, we appreciate you, we love you, you're in the past, this is who we're going for now, and it's disgruntled iPhone users and whoever else.
Well, and this user that I'm, my friend that I'm describing, it was somebody who I think was bought in by the value proposition of a $600 like pretty good Android phone. Yeah. And I, again, it's $200 more than his last one. Like, and he doesn't have a phone to trade in now, unless he can get a carrier deal where it's like, regardless of condition, we'll take your phone. Right. Because the motherboard on his died, and I think I would have told him. I probably would have waited until next year and been like, hey, man, like it's time for you to upgrade your phone. Like, but don't worry, you can get a discount through your carrier with this device. Like, don't worry, the Pixel 11 is actually only going to cost you $500 or something. Like, right. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers, obviously. No, you're right. But like he can't do that now. And so I don't know. Like I worry that this is an example of Google losing a customer. I don't want to hover too long on this anecdote, but it's more of how many times have you heard problems described exactly like the one I'm describing, like seen that on Reddit? It's all over r/Google Pixel. And I don't know. I hope they figure it out. And it's not like this is only a problem facing Google. I think Samsung has like similar issues in terms of not having quite the like in-person reach that Apple has in the US, but so I don't think it matters. I think you hear, despite selling significantly more phones, you hear so many less problems about Samsung devices. Yeah, so like clearly they have that kind of structure figured out at Samsung, and I hope Google follows suit as they take this more seriously. And they are taking it seriously. There's so many Pixel 10 ads. It's a shame they're all focused on AI and not the reliability of a motherboard.
Yes, exactly.
Largely speaking, I would say I agree with you on the big scope. I think we both wrote pieces about Tensor G5 complaints being a little overblown, and that's not the reason I approach Pixel hardware or I keep on a Pixel device. It's the software. It's the M3E experience I was just describing. It's the unified modern smartphone platform, and it's combined with things like Now Playing, as you used as an example. I that's the stuff that keeps me there, and the stuff I want to celebrate and sell to, not sell maybe, but like convince people of like this is a really good platform, and things like Now Playing elevated above other Android ecosystems. It's tricky when it's like, but the phone I had from them just died, or but I had a Pixel 6 and I couldn't get a cell signal, or but I had blah blah blah. Like they bricked my phone. It's so many examples, and Google never delivered my phone. How many times have you heard that story of like UPS stole my new Pixel 10 and like nobody's helping me? So that
was my 7A. My 7A experience, it literally wouldn't switch from 5G to 4G LTE when it lost 5G signal. And it would just sit there and stare at me until 5G came back. It would just go disconnected. And then I'd go into the settings and say, disable 5G, and it worked fine in the same spot. Like just goofy things like that used to be the norm.
Anything else to say on Pixel? On
no,
Tensor?
I think I think that's it. And the thing that got me in trouble online is the title I think I did was Tensor isn't the problem with Pixel, you are. And my point was that, that if you went in buying a Pixel 9 or a 10 and you're complaining about benchmarks, you're complaining about gaming performance, you're complaining about the fact that you can't do 4K 30 recording it for 75 minutes without it overheating, you weren't paying attention, I think was the problem. Because Google's been pretty upfront about who this phone is for, and it's not enthusiasts anymore. The design screams that, the chipset screams that, the marketing campaign screams that, the software screams that. And so if you're still complaining about this, then it's a you problem. It's not a Pixel problem, I think is my point.
Yeah, I mean, it's also just the Pixel software experience is so good, as we've been saying, and I understand why people would want to stick to that no matter what, regardless of whether your priority is gaming. But like, I don't know. My issues with One UI aside, I think if you are a gaming, I think if you are a gamer heavy or gaming heavy user, you should buy something like an S25 Ultra. You should buy a OnePlus. You should buy a gaming phone if you really want to go all the way. Like, I do think like you should speak with your wallet a little bit and tell Google, like, you do need to step up the GPU here if you want me to pay flagship prices for this device. I want it to be able to do everything these other devices can do. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that, and I can see where people are coming from there. But you're gonna it's gonna take a little bit more than just like Reddit threads, I think, to convince Google to change the
the problem is that it was 6 years. Yeah, it was 6 years ago now. But Google did it your way. You know, they had the 855 in the Pixel 4X, and nobody bought them. You know, they sell more. They make more money now. They sell $1 billion+ or $2 billion, whatever the number.
Nobody cares about gaming in the US, really, in mobile gaming in the US. Like, that's like not on a big enough scale for Google to care. Google sees the Pixel as the entry point to getting Gemini in the hands of everybody. Whether or not you want to use it, that's every single advertisement for the Pixel 10 centers on AI. 100%. There's no comments. I don't even think they really comment on the camera anymore. And that was the whole Pixel's identity for like at least 5 generations, if not longer. And so it is now fully just the AI phone, the phone for the Gemini era. And, you know, I again, vote with your wallet if you don't want Google to just go down that hallway, right? To go down that route and limit what the Pixel can be, because I don't think people are wrong. I just think people are expecting more from Tensor G5 based on 2 years of rumors and you know, demands and hopes on what this TSMC migration would bring, instead of like looking at what Google is actually doing and what they're prioritizing and being like, that's not the product they want to build. And I don't think they will change that trajectory, because in their books, in their eyes, this is not a problem with the phone. It's a problem with the audience that is looking at it. And so, I don't know. Vote with your wallet. Like, I truly think that.
Yeah, and the problem is the wallet argument is losing right now, because people are voting with their wallet and they're buying Pixels in higher volume than they used to. So Google's like,
it's true. It's obviously not like a Samsung or an Apple yet, but it's
no.
It's making splashes that were not visible before.
Absolutely.
Let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Steve, we've reached the bonus round.
Yes, I'm excited.
Which is just, I'm just going to throw 3. I have 3 categories at you, and I just want your picks. You can elaborate.
Okay.
Here we go. Biggest surprise success of 2025, and we're doing smartphones for this. This is
right. Okay.
So surprise success. Hit me.
Oh, biggest surprise success.
Yeah, a phone that you didn't expect much of. That won you over, that surprised you.
I think it would probably be then the Z Fold 7. I think that's the one that impressed me the most, for the reasons that we talked about. Because the rest, I'm just skating through the rest of the lineup. You know what? The OnePlus 13 counts in there. Oh, it's got tough in a hurry. You know, I really like the OnePlus 13 a lot. I'm going to still go Z Fold 7, only because the S25 just disappointed me. The Pixel 10 is fantastic, but it's kind of building on what Google already did with the Pixel 9. The Pixel 9a is a really good one. I gotta go Z Fold 7. I think I'm gonna go Z Fold 7 only because Samsung finally listened to people and gave us a phone worthy of $2,000. If you want to say it's worthy of $2,000 or not, it feels like a foldable designed in 2025 with a very good honorable mention to the Pixel 9a, because that phone,
we didn't talk about the 9a.
you know, that phone for $500 And you can complain about Tensor at $1,000 all you want. You cannot complain about a Tensor G4 at $500 because it was hard to poke holes in that device. Mid-range phones, there's some sort of compromise that you have to make that's glaring. You're like, oh, well, they had to skip on that to get to this price point to deliver these other specs in this other area. The Pixel 9a really didn't have any of those. Battery life was outstanding, probably the best on a Pixel device I've used. The chipset was fine. The actual display was fine. The cameras were good. $500, pound for pound, the best phone of the year, I think.
I fully agree. I'm a little upset at myself for having not brought up the 9A in our last conversation. No, I love the 9A. I think it's one of my favorite phones of the year. And I wonder if that's what I end up recommending to my friend who needs a new phone.
There you go.
Because it is very similar to when he bought his Pixel 6 and what he would get from that. So yeah, that might be what it is. And maybe Google, will be happy with that because they still get a sale.
Yeah. Love it.
Had to do it. The other side of that coin. Biggest surprise flop, biggest surprise bust, whatever you want to call it. The device that you had expectations for that were not met.
Well, it's tough. I was thinking about this the other day. It's tough, and we've talked about this before. It's tough to make a bad smartphone these days. I mean,
it is. There's not really any. There's mediocre phones still, but there's very few bad phones still. Yeah,
few bad phones. So the biggest disappointment is, and it's going to annoy people because it's not a bad smartphone in the least, but it is the S25 Ultra. And it's just a phone that I was indifferent about. I know you were indifferent about at the time because the stuff that they sold us on, that they got up and said, well, okay, the battery size is the same, but there's power efficiency with the Snapdragon 8 Elite, so don't worry about it. And yeah, okay, the battery was slightly better. There were things in there, but the things that we were sold heavy on, Now Brief, Galaxy AI, this multimodal nonsense that that were in the phone doesn't work well. In some cases, it doesn't work at all. Now Brief, still, X amount of months later, it still gives me a news story that has nothing to do with anything. I've gone into Samsung news. I've tried to. I remember you had to contact Samsung early on about something with the Now bar or something, or where's not.
Oh, it just straight up, the Now bar just straight up didn't work for me. Or the live activities or whatever. Yeah, it just I could not get that thing to work.
Now the Now bar's grown on me a little bit. Yeah. I do like it, but Now Brief, the other Galaxy AI stuff, I can leave it. And that was the thing that they really hammered home on the Galaxy S25 Ultra is the reason why you'd upgrade. It's not an exciting camera upgrade. It's not an exciting design upgrade. We've taken stuff out of the Bluetooth S Pen. I can't tell you. I want to see that. I want to see the firm that they hired to do that 1% of people use the S Pen thing. Because I can just tell you, just from the comments that I got and the people that I speak to,
well, it was 1% of the users used that feature.
Right, daily. I think was the other qualifier. But it's it's a lot of people. And there has to be some phone reserved for the enthusiasts. That's why it'd be fantastic if you had the S26 Ultra and then the S26 Edge just kind of slide in there as the one for whatever. So for me, it's a phenomenal phone. If you're a Samsung fan, it's got the best display I've used on a smartphone this year. The anti-reflective layer is gorgeous.
It's really good.
The panel is it's awesome. Great phone. But it's still a disappointment. Yes.
Yeah. You've kind of already answered this, Steve, but third and final category, favorite phone of the year.
See, that gets tough. The Razr Ultra, yeah, it's tough for the clamshell, but it is the Razr Ultra. For me, it's the Razr.
It's the Razr Ultra. Fair.
It's the Razr Ultra.
I wish that phone was cheaper. I just wish it was at the Plus, that there was two. It was this year's Plus, and that there were two Razr phones, and it was at 700 and 1,000 or even 1,100. It's tough at like $1,300 to recommend it.
But that's the great thing about Motorola. Like if you don't like the price, wait 5 minutes. Because
that's true. That's true. I think that phone has been down to 1,000, like a lot. So that's true. It's a good phone. I just wish it felt like the price came from bumping the SoC up to a true flagship and making this high powered, we're gonna do all the AI stuff smartphone. And it was like at the end of the day, my biggest disappointment with that device was that I booted up the regular Razr and I was like, I think I like using this one more.
Yeah.
Like the battery's better because the chip is like less powerful and I'm not doing anything on this phone that needs the power of a Snapdragon 8 Elite. Right. So would I not just rather stick with the better battery life and hang out with this, $700 device that is going to like often be discounted to $500 or whatever? Like Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I liked it a little bit more. So I'm with you on the Ultra, but yeah, I think for me, I liked the Razr more.
I think the Ultra seemed like a product that Motorola made to shut up like 5 people like us. I mean, not you but like just for, because it was always the article that was like, oh, it's not we're paying $1,000 the flagship spec. So like, you know what? Fine, here you go. Here's your flagship spec. Here's the middle one, and then here's the one that people are actually going to buy. And but no, I like it a lot. I just like the style. Anytime I pull it out, I have it in pink cabaret. I love the different textures. I'm kind of jealous that people had the Alcantara one. You had the wood one, but you were a little disappointed, right? Didn't you have the wood?
I love the wood.
Yeah.
Other people loved the wood, and I was really hoping I would love the wood.
Right.
And it was okay, but it felt a little too fake for me, and was like wasn't the color wood I would have wanted.
Right.
I don't know. The whole thing felt a little like cheap, and again, compared to like the regular, I just ended up liking holding the regular Razr a little bit more.
Yeah, that rubberized texture they got in the back. The hinge is super solid. Yeah. You know, IP48 this year. There was just a lot of different things going on with the Razr this year that I think I really liked.
Any final? This is so weird to say in October. Any final phone thoughts for 2025?
That's a tough one.
Anywhere you want to see, anything you want to see in 2026, maybe like any trends, any changes to like existing models that we've talked about, anything.
I would like to see the battery technology shift over. I'd like to see that. I mean, maybe I just don't know the technical side of it, why there's such that hesitant. Maybe they don't think they need to. And I think it just would be more expensive, or it'd be some sort of design thing, or they're worried about these high capacity batteries and these small footprints. I don't know what the exactly the thing is there. But I would like to see Google or somebody get over. Now, I think I've seen rumors, I don't know if I'm mistaken, that the S26 Ultra might have 60-watt charging, wire charging. I think I would like to see that. That would be nice. Faster charging on the Pixels would be nice, but really it's the battery stuff. I understand. I put it on the charger every night. It's fine. Having that flexibility to not put it on the charger at night, to have a day where I'm recording video a lot heavily, or have a day where I'm out doing a bunch of stuff, or I'm at a theme park or something like that with my daughter and my family, and we're recording a bunch of video. To have that flexibility, or you don't want to bring 10 chargers. Well, that's a more problem for someone like myself. You want to bring X amount of chargers on a trip. It's nice having that. I could get 2 days of legitimate battery life out of this phone without having to worry about it. I would like to see that in 2026, I think. What about you? What do you want to see?
Oh, what do I want to see? I agree with you on the battery thing. I guess to me, it's just, I want to see companies be a little more, like, I feel like the things we were the most excited about this year were like big swings, like the Fold 7 or, you know, maybe you could chalk the Pixel 9a up as a big swing because it's got that camera barless design, maybe, you know, and they kept it at 500, and I don't think they had to do that. And I kind of just want to see more big swings, because I think they are hitting more often than they're not. And even stuff like the S25 Edge, which I would say missed, there was promise there. There were ideas that I would have liked to see Samsung build on, which is why it's so frustrating that it appears that they're not doing that. So
it's bizarre that it's the same company that has the same name as the one you'd go into the carrier store, and there was always something off in the Samsung kiosk, where there was the Note Edge or the whatever, and always something there that was new and exciting, and that has not happened for a significantly long time.
Yeah, I wonder if the name didn't help, because I remember when they announced it as the S25 Edge, we had a debate, especially like there was a debate, you know, you, me, James Peckham, Daniel Bader, we were all debating of like, does the Edge name, and like, does it matter? Is it people nostalgic for it?
And especially, they didn't help themselves on the preview where it had like light along the edge of the.
No, it had the light, and like James was like, "Oh, I'm nostalgic for this brand," but I think, you know, Daniel's point of like nobody cared about the Edge brand, nobody remembers it, was proven right. I don't think people.
No, it's true.
You know, especially compared to something like you put Air in the iPhone's name, and people, practically anybody who is like. They don't even have to be into technology. They can just be like, I've bought a laptop in the last 10 years. It's like, oh, I get it. Like the MacBook Air, or the iPad Air. I get it. I see that. I know exactly what that means. it's the big swings are good, and I'm happy to see them. I just hope that I hope they continue, and I hope that they are maybe a little more well thought out. I think that's where I'm at.
And I got $10 for the first manufacturer in the U.S. that gets us a 1-inch camera sensor. $10. Venmo him $10 right now.
Linus has rejoined after being kicked off the desk several times to say goodbye.
I want to see more technology. Like, do I have to show you your friend? I want to see more technology like this guy in 2026. That I have converted other colleagues.
Say what you're holding up.
This is I have to for the younger audience. This is a Tandy 102, which you could type on. And I'm telling you, I've converted other colleagues who have written on these things. That they make newer ones now. They're less ancient. But distraction-free writing is fantastic. I love it. Absolutely.
There we go.
No notifications all over the place.
That's the dream. Steve, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
So upset. He wants to escape my arms so bad. Thank you for being here.
I miss you, man.
We'll have you back on.
I miss you.
Well, I'm always a Telegram.
No, I know, but it's different when we're complaining about stuff live. You know,
I know. I know. No, it's been good having you, and we will have you back on again at some point in 2026 because the smartphones will not stop. Although they feel fairly slow right now. There is a reason we are recording this, and it is because that OnePlus 15 is coming. Right?
Yep. Yes, it is.
Linus says, yeah.
He's
Linus
excited about it. Look at him.
Yeah, I know. He's something. Where can people find you, Steve?
AndroidPolice.com, StevealiciousTech on YouTube. That's about it. The social medias, but I rarely do anything on there. But basically YouTube, StevealiciousTech, and AndroidPolice.com.
Yeah, it links in the description for both Steve's author bio at AP and your YouTube channel because people should check that out. Next week, and by next week for me I mean tomorrow because I'm recording next week's interview tomorrow. Is Nick Sutrich from Android Central. We're going to talk about XR, VR, AR, all of the headset news following the Galaxy XR announcement last week that I think might be closer to the edge than the Fold 7. Making a prediction, but I'm going to talk about it. We're going to hash it out, Nick and I. Nick is a huge VR guy. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. So that's next week. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter if you really want to, at Will_Sattelberg. You listen to Pixelated, 9 to 5 Google's other podcast that I'm also on with Damien and Abner. Really, really fun conversations lately. You know, not that it was not fun before, but like we've been really, I think, hitting our stride since I joined that show. Linus is all tangled up in my headphone cord, so we're going to say goodbye. Thank you for listening, and we'll see everybody next week. Goodbye.